I'm recording this on Zoom too. All right, so I'm going to take a moment and just, kind of give a little outline of what this is about and introduce you, Joy. So everyone hold tight before this beautiful woman starts talking. So I want to just take a moment and first of all, introduce myself to your viewers. If you have some people on here, my name's Nikki Aiello. I'm a recovery and life transition coach based out of Denver, Colorado. And today, my dear friend Joy Stone is my guest to interview. She and I are former classmates. We met a few, 5 or 6 years ago in Los Angeles when we were studying with a gentleman named Robert Bernberg. It was a yoga and life enhancement program. So a lot of positive psychology, a lot of study of the Yoga Sutras, deep spiritual studies into ancient texts and how to utilize all of this for modern day living. So we have that background together. That's where we really connected. Joy continued on to further her career in studies in positive psychology, and I'll let her talk to you more about all of that, and forgive me for reading my notes. So we've both been pursuing our lives' passions as coaches, and she's really got a thriving business. She's been helping a lot of people. She just published her first best-selling book, which is super awesome. She's going to talk to all of us about that. She is a spiritual coach and an anxiety coach, which once again, she will expand on. So I invited her on today. I just think it's a perfect time for us to talk about anxiety. And I feel like she's a huge inspiration to me on all levels. And I really feel like she's an authority on anxiety and resilience. And once again, blending Eastern and Western psychology and schools of thought to be helpful for managing, any type of stress really, but anxiety in particular. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her, and then we'll go into this just a bit more in depth. So as I mentioned, she's a spiritual and anxiety coach. She's based in Nashville. She's known for her ability to deliver spiritual teachings in a practical and modern way. Joy works closely with spiritual seekers who have tried everything to solve their anxiety, but struggle to feel confident and in control of their lives. She's the author of her new best-selling book, If I'm So Spiritual, Why Am I Still So Anxious? The Soul Seeker's Guide to Reclaim Their Joy. And she's the founder of Soul School, a coaching program, which blends Eastern and Western psychology and philosophy, and has helped countless spiritual seekers move from information overload to lasting inner transformation. And I'd love to get deeper into that concept too today, information overload, because it's really happening, especially right now with things that we're not used to processing. She shares her professional experience with the world through workshops, coaching, retreats, books, and speaking engagements. She received her positive psychology education at the Whole Being Institute under Harvard professor Tal Ben-Shahar, which I really hope to go through that program one day as well. Her yoga teaching certification under the Anusara style, which is a therapeutic application of yoga philosophy and practice. So that is a lot, but I wanted to give you some background on Joy that can all sink in. And so here she is, Joy Stone. Welcome, Joy.
Thanks, Nikki. It's good to be here. I'm just looking at all these great names too, like Namaste Hey joined. I like that name. The people that are on with us. I love these names.
He's a brand new friend. That's funny.
That is. Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's good to see you. And I think it was 2012 when we met at Robert's space, which is like 8 years ago.
It was that long ago?
Yeah, I realized I was just looking
Wow.
at Zoom. I know time goes so fast. So yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. And this is a really, I'm feeling it, of course. I know you're feeling it. There's just this feeling of stress or, anxiety or overwhelm. And I think really a lot of what I'm feeling and a lot of people I talk to are feeling too is just fatigue and uncertainty about, there's a lot of, our energy is really being pulled in many directions about, you know, trying to survival, figuring out what to do. We're just not in our normal routines. And so things feel really out of balance for a lot of people, you know, not feeling grounded. So I think this is a great conversation to have. And I know a lot of people are having these conversations at their dinner table, in their communities, you know, reading books about it. So yeah, where should we begin? Do you want me to start?
Well, you know, I have, what's that?
I was gonna say, do you want me to, I know you had a couple of things that you highlighted when you were talking about how we met and sort of some of my work and your work. But is there a specific?
Yeah, I mean, if you'd like to just explain a little bit more about, you know, what you do, how you do it, that's probably a good lead in to kind of give a foundation for you.
Yeah. Okay, so my background personally is, you know, anxiety from the time I was really young, experienced a lot of anxiety. I was diagnosed with anxiety. You know, at 26, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And that really set me, you know, the diagnosis, especially of post-traumatic stress disorder, because I felt like that was something that was reserved for people who had been through war or, you know, something like that. But that really set me out on a path to move beyond labels in my life, to really get to know more of who I am. And then that set me on a journey of, you know, finding yoga and finding other teachers and other healers and other modalities, which led me to the work I do today. And the reason I bring that up is that although, you know, you shared some of the education that you and I have both gone through, you know, with whether it's the yoga psychology or positive psychology, but coming at it really not just from an academic point of view, but really sharing my experience of being on one side of anxiety and really feeling like I've walked through it and, you know, recovered from anxiety. And there was a paradigm shift in my life, which is I had to make a decision, and we could talk about this because a lot of it was around that time when we were studying with Robert, you know, 8 years ago, that I needed to either continue to try to manage my anxiety and feel less anxious, or begin to change the way that I feel and start to build up my confidence and my adhikara, what yoga calls your adhikara, your studentship, your spiritual authority, your sense of self. And those are two very different paths. And so my passion comes when as I work with people, and I have a program called Soul School. So it's a group program, it's a coaching program, but it's spiritual based. I bring in the Yoga Sutra, positive psychology, spiritual principles, and my experience. And I also work with people privately, but I really meet that person who's gone through, you know, they have all the tools. Sort of they have all the, you know, we know to take the deep breath. You know, we know to chant our mantras or to, you know, take a yoga class or to get rest or eat good foods or exercise. And all of those things are so important. They're all part of what I teach. And yet if we continue to look at those things as the solution, you know, what I teach is those things are there to help us know who we are. They're not the solution in and of themselves, but that's where I was for so long. I kept trying to use those tools, and I would think, okay, I'd feel good on the yoga mat or in the meditation circle or, you know, in Shavasana or when things were just calmed down. But I wasn't having that sustained control to be able to manage my inner life. So I meet people who have practiced for a while or have those tools, but now they really feel like, why am I still feeling not quite in control of myself? Why do I still have this doubt or this fear or this anxiety, which is why my book's titled, If I'm So Spiritual, Why Am I Still So Anxious? And so it doesn't mean that we haven't come a long way, but all of the books that I was reading about spirituality and about our true nature and contentment and joy, I thought some people have experienced this. There's books about them. The ancient teachers are telling us this exists. Why am I not having that? And so that was really, you know, a driving force for me too. So I really teach people about that joy, about how to connect to that sattvic place, that place inside of us. And the tools are there to show us that place. They're not in and of themselves the point, so to speak, but they're valuable. That was a long answer, but that's I just wanted to share that it's not
That's
from an
great.
academic point of view that I teach as much as from an experiential point of view as well. Yeah.
Right. Well, and the academic part helps with the languaging a
Yeah,
lot, you know, so it can
definitely.
be a little bit esoteric or just subjective or kind of hard to explain your feelings, your, you know, experiential state. So it all makes
Yes.
sense. And that totally, you know, the title of your book is perfect. It really conveys that, you know.
I know. I was like, is this, because that's what I used to say to myself. And I have a lot of clients or students that come to me with that's a variation of that question. Why? I've been working so hard on myself. What is going on? And, you know, I think I had you know, I call it, it's like a wake up. It was like a breakthrough, a breakdown in my car. And I write about it in my book. And it was such a pivotal, it was the turning point in my life in terms of anxiety. I was a positive psychology practitioner. So I'd already gone through my positive psychology program. You and I had gone through Robert's programs. I had so many certifications in yoga, meditation, mindfulness, you know, years and years of therapy, study, spiritual practice. And I had this moment where I was in my car and I was just crying. I was just like, why am I so hard on myself? Why does life feel so hard sometimes? And why am I feeling so, just that anxiety brings on this hyper awareness of yourself. And it feels like you're like kind of in this inner battle with yourself, you know, and life looks easier for other people on the outside sometimes. And I guess I was just having this moment of like really feeling bad about this, that I hadn't kind of solved this. What's going on? All this information about what I should be doing. And I was doing a lot of it. And I had this download. This is kind of the best way I describe it, is it was just that epiphany, awakening, moment of clarity. And the thought came to me that anxiety is not my problem. It's feedback. Anxiety has never been my problem. And it was like, I was freed, not because of that epiphany, but because of the culmination that led me, all the struggle and suffering I'd experienced to get to that epiphany where, wow, you know, I had heard in positive psychology that our emotions, you know, put us in motion, and that our emotions are little navigation systems. And spiritual teaching teaches this too. Our emotions are their energy, their navigation systems. They're moving us in a direction in our life. And there's only two directions that we can ever really go, which is toward love or toward fear, toward connection or separation. And I was realizing in that moment, anxiety was just like, it's like a mirror. As soon as anxiety arises, it's not to judge it. It was just like, it's showing me where I am without judgment in relationship to who I am. Because anxiety is considered a vulculpa, or a mental, it's constructed in our mind. It's kind of hard to imagine that when there's external factors, and sometimes there are external factors pressing upon us. But anxiety ultimately in spiritual teaching it's a vulculpa. It's mind created, comes out of our imagination or our conclusions about things, unless we're in actual danger, our projections. And we're so intertwined with all of those conclusions and projections that we can't quite separate. We go, no, but that can't be. But it's so intertwined. So the point being, I just had this awakening from my own personal experience that this is going to be, it's kind of like alcoholism, right? Like, or drug addiction or something like that, where, and I know that you and I have talked about that, and I got sober at 24, and I used alcohol for a long time to try to relieve that suffering, that anxiety. But in alcohol, you know, when you go through alcohol awareness and you become familiar with what that is, you realize that that's just a symptom of something else. That alcoholism, that's a symptom of a disconnection, and the solution is to reorient yourself to who you are. There's different language for it. And anxiety is the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, I was realizing that when I get so anxious, it's because my mind has taken me somewhere so far away from who I am. And it's not always easy to get back. It's not always simple. This isn't like snap your fingers. Now, when you see anxiety, you just should know who you are. But it was just going to be a different guiding system in my life. And so I teach people how to connect to this sort of guiding system and look at anxiety in a different way, as a messenger and as a spiritual messenger, instead of as a problem you have to solve, because you know that what you resist persists. And if you spend your time trying to keep that cork down and judging anxiety, then there's all these complexities to our emotions that can block us more. So that's sort of what I teach a lot, is about this epiphany that I had as well. And I have practical paths to teach that. So
can you talk a little bit about those practical paths?
Well, it's a whole process in soul school. And first we go through what I call, so I give this example, and it's in my book too. So it's laid out in there, but we go deep into it in the work. Obviously, we know when we're in gathering and group, we can really go deep in those conversations. But the first thing is to realize that you have well, I call it your soul circle. So like in yoga psychology, if you imagine 3 circles along a line, right? Like paper, 3 circles. The far left circle, I teach it as that's your soul circle. That's your true nature. That's who you are. That's the part of you that's confident already, that knows exactly what to do, that is seeing everything from a bigger picture, that's wise, that's free. These are our essential that's our essential nature. And if we put qualities to them, it's just that very often, because as we grow up, we don't get to know that part of us. We start to identify with these other aspects of who we are, with life, with the external world. And we want to be in the world, we're in the world, but we don't really engage in, a lot of us, I know I didn't, in this deep relationship with that part of myself. And so it sort of gets ignored. And then we have a belief window. We have the mind, we have the ego, which is not bad. It's our mind. We need it. But we start to, like, I remember when I was, really young, I was at this dance and this girl said to me, and I came from a family where there was a lot of alcoholism and neglect, and there was stuff going on in my home, and I already felt not good enough. And I went to this dance and this girl said to me, "What are you doing here?" And that went on my belief window. So I'm using the belief window as an analogy, that now that got like impressed in me as like, I don't ever want to feel that way again. I don't ever want to walk in a room and have someone ask me that question ever again in my life. So that starts to produce anxiety. And the mind starts to create, how can I avoid this? And so I start to live my life trying to avoid feeling a certain way or feeling a certain way. And that gets projected onto the world I'm living in. So we see the world as we are, not as it is. We've heard that saying. We see the world through our own lens. The idea is, the first step is sort of to know that you have this lens and that you can change the way you see the world. But it's not going to be by rearranging the world. It's going to be by cleaning this mala, yoga calls, right? And mala is residue. So for example, someone else may have heard something like, "What are you doing here?" And it might have hurt them. But somehow that other person, not me, there's 2 of us here, was able to digest that and make sense of that for themselves. And it probably stung and hurt. It doesn't mean it didn't sting and hurt. But I took it on and made conclusions about myself. I layered it with more conclusions, because it's not that the girl said that to me that caused my anxiety to continue on in my life. It's the conclusions I made about myself because she said that. Does that distinction, you know what I mean? So those conclusions are vikalpas. And so I have to clean that window. And also simultaneously, the yoga practice, the spiritual practice, is about cleaning that window and building your relationship with who you are. But most people, and I say most, this is myself, are so busy cleaning the window. We know we need to clean these windows. We know we have thoughts and old ideas and stories and beliefs that don't serve us. And we're trying to clean it off, or we're trying to organize our life so we don't ever encounter people like that again, or whatever it might be. We're in those other 2 circles. We're in the mind circle and the world circle, but we got to be in that soul circle. So it's simultaneously cleaning your window, connecting to who you really are, and creating an entirely new window for yourself, because you can believe anything you want to believe. Beliefs aren't facts. We all hear that. I had all this information already but I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to put it into practice, or I didn't really understand that I had, this is the greater distinction. I knew how to put it into practice. I didn't understand that I had to become it. I had to become different on the inside, which is what visualization, bhavana in yoga is all about. It's not about having a vision that down the road, I want this goal so I can feel better. It's, I need to have that goal so that can inform me about how I want to feel right now and practice feeling right now. And the practice is always in the now. So, so the first step is really about understanding. It's just this sense of, and I help people lay out, like defining what their soul circle is. You know, and again, in the book, I ask some questions like old ideas about your soul circle, what you want your soul circle to be, naming your soul circle. You must have a relationship. This is what in yoga we call abhyasa. Abha is the root word that means to be in connection with your most intimate self. Abha translates as practice in English, but in yoga, we often think of practice as getting on our mat, you know, and that's all good. I do that. We need to do that. But abhyasa is really about being in that connection with who you are on a daily basis. And so I help people build that into their life and define that. I don't define it for them. They get to totally define it, of course. And then we look at the belief window and we start to see how that really is creating the experience they're having in great part. And this isn't woohoo. We have what's in our brain called a reticular activating system. And so what you already believe reinforces what you see. This is what the filter in your brain does. What you believe, if I believe I'm not good enough, I will see evidence in my world for why I should continue to believe that. And then as I see evidence, I'll believe it reinforces my belief. And as my belief gets reinforced, I start to see more evidence in my world. And then I believe it more. So it's this vicious cycle that if we don't get space from it and actually work to change it, it can create, we just get trapped in it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're like, that's a lot
to me. And it makes a lot of sense to me because we come from the similar background. So we've both been, we've shown up for class where we go over that and over that and over that until it sinks in. Yeah. I think it's a lot for people who are new to this to process, which is why Absolutely. They, get a coach, etc. Three things came to mind while you were talking. And I'm not sure. I'm just going to voice them and then we'll see where we want to go with it. Yeah. One is, when you stated how you really have to be it. Yeah. You can't just think about it and the philosophy of it and all of that. Get, an expert on the idea of it, but you have to be it. And that's one of my favorite practices that we learned in class together. And I'm sure you probably continued on with it with your positive psychology course. But the bhavana, my favorite exercise with it, and I use this with clients a lot, is when they have something coming up that they're anxious about. Mm-hmm. Because anxiety is usually rooted in the future-ish, like, you're protecting, you don't want to feel this thing again, like you were saying. But so they've got something coming up they're anxious about. And so I have them sit down and basically it's already happened. So they go into they imagine it's already happened. And now they're reflecting on it and telling me exactly how it went. So there was like this meeting with somebody that they're so anxious about. They're, in their mind, they're just creating all of these fantasies of a negative response or, just all these things that they're fearful about happening and how they're going to come out of it feeling and all of that. So it's actually, and I have them write it so they can read it out loud. And they write, Nikki, I had that, that meeting yesterday and it went like this, and they spell it out and it was a success. And they, they get really detailed with how the other person responded. And most importantly, how they left feeling, because, it's the cellular feeling experience that really, reconfigures the neural patterning and all that, I believe, ish. Yeah. So that's one way I believe of like being it, it's like that practice of being being the experience that you want to inhabit as a default, to reprogram. So I just wanted to bring that up. And on the heels of that, that's almost a little bit of the fake it till you make it sort of, you know, path. Not really, but it came up while you were talking. Like, what do you have to say about that whole fake it till you make it practice?
Yeah, I've heard that before, and I have to think about what that kind of means, because fake it until you make it. And I think
got a negative connotation, obviously, but you know, resonates with some people.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. I think that's fine. I think it again comes down to this idea of there is this distinction that we have to, or that I had to sort of close the gap on, is that if I just fake it until I make it, the idea is that we have to let go of this idea that something external or it is going to make it for me. It's like, I'm not sure if that means that, but it's taking that total responsibility of the experience we want to have. And as you were talking about, you know, that exercise you do with your clients, the bhavana is so important because it is, I've made 2 notes as you were talking. One is that we get very, very used to, and I'm speaking for myself, is as humans, is looking at the situation or the environment or the conditions of our life to tell us how we should feel. So this is a huge thing, because this is a turning point when we can really embody this and understand this on a deep practice level, like practicing it is something occurs in my life, and maybe it's something that always upsets me. Okay, so something happens, there's something, maybe it's a parent, or we have a trigger or whatever it might be, but there's that thing that's triggering me, that's bothering me. And so
before you go on, maybe let's put this in the context of right now, all of this stuff that's happening, something's triggering you, and let's go from that point. So this is a little bit more, broad.
Concrete. Yeah, absolutely. So if something is triggering me right now, it doesn't mean that whatever is happening isn't happening. But it means if I don't like the way that I feel about what is happening, that I can change how I feel about what is happening. And just even that right there, before we even go on, is a big conversation. Is to say that, you know what, because we'll go into, but how can I feel, calm, or how can I feel safe, or how can I trust, or how can I have any sort of certainty in this, in whatever's happening, whatever the feeling we want is. And there again, we will have uncertainty in life, and whatever again is happening, but that is our power. That is what all the great teachers are teaching us, from modern to ancient. That this is what bhavana is really, I think, about, is creating a new pathway for ourselves, is saying, look, because I'm going to bring it into the context of what's happening now, but I want to give the teaching context. That bhavana that you're talking about is our ability, what it translates to in English is our ability to see with our whole self, to see something new. It's our ability to see something else. That's what the teaching is. It's not saying the ability to make everything out here okay so that I can feel a certain way. It's saying the practice of bhavana is my ability to see something else with my whole self. And the next sutra right after that says the more vividly you can see it, the nearer you are to it. This is what yoga is linking. The more that you can see and feel and practice being calm in the midst of chaos is the only way you will become more calm in the midst of chaos. And it's like anything else. We don't want this to be happening, and we're human. And if we have an emotion, a big emotion, we need to allow it. We don't just sit there and go, well, I'm having this fear, so I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to stuff it down and pretend like I'm okay. It's acknowledging the fear. It's acknowledging the habitual habit that comes up for us, or maybe my habit is anxiety. But I can have that feeling and that habit and look at it and have a chosen truth as well. That's what bhavana is. It's a chosen truth. So there's a lot of uncertainty in my life right now as well. I mean, there's a lot of things about that's going on because of the pandemic. We have a movement. There's so many things happening that I would like the external pieces of my life to be very, very different right now in certain areas. If I could wave a magic wand, I could make a list of all the things I don't want to be happening right now. And I acknowledge those things, but it's like our mind is a little magnifying glass. What do I want to, it's like the news. The news isn't telling us the only reality, it's just magnifying one reality. And I don't mean that to sound insensitive, but there's other things, there's like good, great things happening that people are doing. All the, you know, service and love and the things that people are doing and sharing and connecting. So it's just about our chosen reality. What am I choosing to see? What do I choose to feel right now? And this is why the first sutra of the Yoga Sutra, as you know, is the Commitment Sutra. It's saying, look, you are going to have a habit. And if you are suffering, this is a way out of suffering. And you have maybe a habit of anxiety or worry or rumination or fear or whatever our habit is when things arise. And this is extreme. But this is also a good time to practice. Why not practice what we actually have control over? Because there's a lot going on right now we have no control over. And the myth is we want to tell ourselves, well, I'll practice having control over myself when it's easier or when there's, you know, it's not quite so crazy. But this is a time, because that's where we can lean into our studentship. When we say studentship in our practice, it's the studentship of what this chosen reality. You know, I often think about, you know, the Dalai Lama. I mean, Dalai Lama has not had an easy life. You know, he was separated from his family, exiled from his home, and he is like one of the most loving, positive. Has an adhikar about his inner life in the midst of so much, you know, disruption in his own life. So bhavana is, how do we choose our reality? Well, we have to first decide, what do I want to feel? How do I want to feel today? Why did I wake up today? This is my life. Why did I wake up today? Did I wake up to just be run by my habit of feeling, to be run by the circumstances that I don't have any control over? Did I wake up to feel what? So it is choosing into that reality and practicing it. And it will be hard and it will be challenging some days. And it's okay not to we're not going to get it perfect. It's not about that. It's just about being in that consistent practice. So I think not looking at the evidence around us all the time for the feedback about what we should feel. And yeah, it's not always the popular answer. You know, because when I first started hearing these teachings too, I would actually get really mad at them, these teachings. I thought, no, there's a lot to be worrying about here. And especially in terms of my own healing and recovery from anxiety, coming from a type of family that I came from, I wanted to keep looking at that situation as to why I had anxiety. I wanted to keep saying, no, that's why, don't tell me that, you know. But again, my mind was in the habit of looking at the past circumstances of my life to tell me how I should feel right now. And also my body had organized itself, because post-traumatic stress or chronic anxiety is really not about, unless we're in immediate danger. We're talking about when it's not about really that fearful future or even the moment. It's about a body and a mind that has organized itself in a way to mistake the past for the present. So it's that samskara of, so if I can be here, some way to find to be here and to do that work here, to practice feeling right in this moment what I want to feel. And positive emotion actually opens us up to more solution in our life. So when we're positive, see, when we're afraid or anxious, we feel like we're doing something. We feel like, well, you know, I'm worrying, I'm doing something. You know, I can't let go of this worry. What'll happen if I let go of this worry? But it's not really solving anything. And it's actually contracting our attention and our awareness and our ability to see other choices in our life. So I used to think, like, how could I possibly have a positive emotion when there's whatever going, you know, like something like this going on? But that's how we build resiliency. right? Positive emotion, being able to bounce back, being able to choose, practicing gratitude, these things that we hear. And sometimes I'm like, oh, gratitude again, please, you know, like, I joke, but you know, it's always the gratitude, and but it's so important. It's really a gateway. When you look at, I was reading yesterday to my community, we were reading a little bit out of Power versus Force, this great book by David Hawkins. And, you know, everything is energy, and emotions can be measured energetically. And so an emotion like shame vibrates at a 20. An emotion like love, the highest kinds of love, or like, I think it's like around 1,000. That's where like people like the Buddha or Jesus vibrated at, right? Like these higher elevated emotions. But the kind of love that knows no opposite. It's this very, you know, but the idea is that there's a turning point emotion that, and you know, David Hawkins, and he's a doctor, studied, and it's that courage. Courage is the pivotal emotion. If I can even have the courage today, courage is the empowerment emotion. It places us in a place of more adhikara, empowerment, choice. Can I have the courage today to choose into how I want to feel and even decide how I want to feel? Like, that's a big deal in a situation like this. We can either spend all of our day focusing on what we can't control right now, or we can lean into what we do have control over. And when we can have control over what I call the core four, which is what we think, what we believe, what we feel, in our own choices, we are much more of service to the world, in our own life. So I teach a lot about courage, you know, as part of that, you know, and resiliency is saying, look, bad things are going to happen to everyone. We're all going to have setbacks. We're all in this together. In the sense of, there's a pandemic going on right now that none of us can say is not going on, right? But not everybody's seeing that in the same exact way. I mean, we're all having our own experience with it too. Our own personal experience, and then the global experience. My light keeps shining on my eyes. It's so funny.
I think that gives it another layer of anxiety. I mean, it's the pandemic itself. It's just the actual fact of what's going on. But now it's like the different philosophies or perspectives on it and how to go about it, which is like another layer of anxiety. It's just like, you know, how are you going to discuss this with certain people? What actions are you going to take? How are you going to respond to ones that aren't aligned with yours? It's just, you know, so many levels. That's kind of another conversation, but it's still, you know, more stuff that just causes stress and anxiety, you know, and can.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I want to ask you, so I think that's really huge. And I know the whole Bhavana thing, what we were talking about, and I like how you described it. It says as the chosen truth, you know, it's actually our ability to choose to see something different. Yes. The possibility to see a new possibility. You have to see it before you can make it real.
Yeah, you have to see it. And here's the thing, and you and I know this, we've talked about this, and with Robert too, but I've come to know it this way: we have to become it. Right. Yeah. So I'm just saying, for people listening, like, we have to become that chosen truth. Yeah, go ahead.
For sure. I just feel personally, like, if I can see it, it's that extra bit of fuel. And maybe it's that pivot, it's that turning point that you were talking about. It's that extra boost that gives you the courage to take the action to make it a reality, to become that. But as far as the positive emotion being such a powerful thing right now, in dealing with, I mean, I know scientifically, and you were talking about the different levels of energetic, the scale at which the frequencies. Yeah. It's, you know, it has a charge. And I feel like I personally know that when I practice feeling it, not just thinking positively, I think that kind of drives people nuts sometimes when they're like, you know, be positive, you know, be more positive. And a lot of it is like, one, you have to acknowledge the fact that it's okay to feel, and it's okay to feel all these other things, you know, and fully express them and process them and digest them. And at the same time, when you can, do the positive emotion practices, because those really just propel you upward out of those heavier, denser, negative, as just in the negative symbol, emotions and frequency and existence. And so me personally, it's kind of like what you were saying, rather than managing all of the external things that are going to make you feel better and give you safety right now, because I think there's just so many questions of people not feeling safe in their future, even just kind of just their basic livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, rather than coming up with the answers, and it's the practice of cultivating that positive emotion. And it's not in your head. Sometimes you can start with thought to make it happen, but it's a cellular, visceral experience that for me is below the neck, you know? And I don't know, I think it's a huge, powerful practice. And I feel like that's kind of what we're talking all about, you know, getting back to in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering if you might talk a little bit more about how people can practice this, if that resonates with you as something to leave people with and have them have a takeaway from this conversation. How can they cultivate that?
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I want to give them I'm going to give everybody a specific practice, which I'm going to give next, but I want to say about what you said, which is so good, is that positive thinking is not really even what positive psychology is about. And you know that, and that's why you're saying that. It's not like this, just think positive. It's really about our psychology. It's about if you think about your psychology, it's about how you choose to make sense of things, how you organize things in your life, the meaning you give things. It doesn't mean like, oh, something bad happened, I'm just going to try to think positive about it. It's more like how we explain things to ourselves. You know, like the meaning we give something, because, you know, a lot of people have read the book, you know, A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And Man's Search for Meaning, you know, Viktor Frankl was in the Holocaust, and he was, you know, at a camp, and he was lost his family. And he ended up writing a book called A Man's Search for Meaning. He was not telling people to think positive, but he was saying our suffering sometimes can help us find more meaning in our life. And that's what a positive psychology is like, oh my gosh, this is happening. What am I going to do with this? And I just think that's very, very important, because Yoga Sutra talks about this too. It says that our suffering is there the purpose of suffering is to wake us up. So meaning we can find meaning even in our suffering. It can help us wake up. And so cultivating positive emotion, what that does for us, if things like gratitude or contentment, you know, things that we learn in the yoga tradition or in modern psychology, we do that because it helps our brain stay expansive so that we can do the work of choosing. When we're in fight or flight, when we're in anxiety, we are contracted, we are primal. Think about it like this. When you're in fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that can reason, choose, discern, pretty much goes offline. And your amygdala, the part of you that just is trying to get out of whatever's happening, is alive and awake. And you are not choosing, you are reacting. And your habits will just flare up. So positive emotion helps us to calm the amygdala, put that little guy to sleep for a while, and we don't need him every second, and helps bring the prefrontal cortex back online so that we can choose our own way. As Viktor Frankl says, he says, you know, the one thing that cannot be taken from man is his ability to choose his own way. That's basically what positive psychology is. How do we choose our own way even in this? And so a practice to feed our positive, because also we have two sides to our nervous system, which we've been talking about, the fight or flight, but we have this other side, which is the parasympathetic, the relax, the digest and rest and digest. That's where we're meant to live. We're not meant to live in the fight or flight, but we tell ourselves, but these things are happening and I have to live in the fight or flight. No, that's a belief. And so living in the relaxation response starts to quiet that fight or flight. It starts to allow us to open up to more possibilities, to digest our food better, to sleep better, to communicate better. all sorts of amazing things happen when we're in that relaxed state, not sleep, not checking out state, right? But that part of our nervous system. So a practice that I always have my clients and students.
Can I ask you one question real quick?
Yeah.
So are you saying that we need to go into the parasympathetic, the relaxed state before we can cultivate the positive emotion?
No, it is better to practice anything like bhavana or visualization from a state of relaxation, positive emotion. So I always have people get into a relaxed state because you're more connected to the creative part of you. You're more connected to source when you're in that relaxed state. You're always connected to source, but you feel more disconnected. So the question you're asking me is, should they go into that state to do what you said? To think the positive, to feel the positive?
Not should they, I mean, you answered the question. I mean, basically
Okay.
said it's easier to practice those. It's more beneficial, or you're more able to when you are in a relaxed state.
Yes, to do
which I kind of wanted to point out to people, because it goes back to like, what sort of practice do you have in your life to practice being in that state? It's something that you choose to spend some time doing or being or whatever to bring yourself into that, to have that experience. So, I mean, I think that's one really important thing to share with people who are not, they haven't gone down this path very far yet, or, they haven't developed some sort of relaxing practice and made it like a priority, like something that is non-negotiable. Like, this has to be part of my life in order for me to experience peace. Like, it's not just because people say it's good. It's actually the effect of it is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of my teachers would tell me years ago, right after Robert, I think is when I really started to understand this, was that we are meant to live. And this is something I would love just to meditate on, to people to think about, and to just, to just contemplate that we're meant to live in the relaxation response. And I know for me, for a long time, I thought, well, no, that's what I feel after Shavasana, after yoga. I feel the relaxation response.
Right. Yeah. That's for 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm just going to go take a walk outside. And those are all things we need to be doing. But I'm just trying to make that discernment that for people who may not know that we're actually meant to live our daily life in the relaxation response. And the fight or flight will kick in when there actually is a threat. But most of our threats are coming from our own thinking and our projections, right? Even about what is happening. And there are things that are happening that are causing us to feel stressed, but we have to be able to manage that and still stay in that relaxation response so that we can relate to it differently. So the practice that I often give is I have people take a piece of paper and draw a big, I'll show it here. You can see my paper. Yeah?
Yeah.
So you have 4 quadrants. And on the left top quadrant, you could write physical. One of the quadrants will be physical, one will be emotional, one will be spiritual, and one will be mental. And I have people, my clients, set aside 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And these are non-negotiables. These are, build it into your habit, because there will be a lot of excuses. Even write down some of your excuses. I have people tell me, okay, what's every excuse that you have not to take care of yourself, not to make time for this? What's every excuse, every rationalization? Get it out. And we have to be willing to be uncomfortable and to challenge those excuses and do it anyway. So we're the change we're waiting for. If we want to have a new experience, we have to commit to this practice. So 20 in the morning, 20 at night. You could make it longer if you have more time. And so the physical is move your body. When you wake up, I'm not talking about a sweaty workout, but move your body. We know that when we move our body, our chemicals, our brain feels better. We feel differently after a little bit of movement. So it's moving your body. And then it's reading something. So the mental is, I like to read something. Some people will listen to a little bit of a podcast or talk, but something that feeds your brain something good, something that aligns with what you believe or you're learning, or it nourishes you in some way. And so read anything, have great books, podcasts, whatever. You could listen to it. You could even go on a walk and combine the mental and the physical. Listen to a podcast, listen to a YouTube talk, whatever.
One of my new clients called that habit stacking. I like that new term. It's a habit stacking.
Yeah, that's a good term. Habit stacking, definitely. So yeah, you know, and then the emotional is writing it, you know, could be for some people writing a gratitude, you know, getting yourself in that state of gratitude. You know, having a joy list. I call it a joy list. You know, my positive psychology teacher used to call it happiness boosters. Write down something in your day that you're looking forward to. So many of us are right now are just like, oh my gosh, we're feeling overwhelmed. Our schedules are off. Our kids are home. We're like, how are we going to get through this day? Carve out something that's going to help you feel good about it. It can be a 5-minute walk around the block. It could be, I'm going to make a phone call to a friend today, whatever it is. So it's having that sense of gratitude, finding what's going well in your life right now, thinking about someone you love, whatever can help you produce that positive sense of emotion. And then spiritual would be, you know, I'm giving just specific examples of practices: meditation, visualization, journaling, breathing practices. So and what I do is I have people, I have a quadrant that I give out to my clients that is made, and I have them write down different things in the quadrant. So they have a bunch of options, right? You know, maybe podcasts they like, books they like, and then you prepare a space in your house. It does not have to be a whole room. It could be a corner in your bedroom that you have these things. Your journal's already there, you know, your notebook, whatever, your books are already there. And keep your phone away from your sleeping area. That's another tip. So that's just a nice way to build in a daily practice for yourself that kind of combines all the, you know, the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional.
I wanted to say one thing about that. I love all of it, number one. Number two, for those, you know, there's a lot of people out there. There's a ton of people who resonate with the word spiritual and spirituality, you know, and then there's some who it's a little off-putting. So for me personally, and I think we've got it, I don't know if it was through our training or through one of my other trainings, but, you know, it could be mental, physical, emotional. And the other one is, well, and we talked about it, the translation for spirit, inspire, is breath.
Yeah.
You know, so if you go back to the Latin roots, it's breath.
Yeah.
So totally. I mean, if you'd like to take that word spiritual out of it, breathing practices can replace it.
You could do that, yeah. Or you could have that quadrant be, breathing, or what grounds you, what connects you. So it could just be about, because that whole quadrant there is really about this idea of what makes you feel connected and grounded. Because anxiety, and so breathing would do that, absolutely. Anxiety is we're in our head. You know, in yoga philosophy, it's very, you know, we're up in our head. It's very rajasic, and, you know, so we're trying to get down into this more of this grounding place, this earthy place. And so these practices help us to sort of ground and be present and just turn in a little bit and, you know, get out of that, letting the head travel off into the future, you know, or even off into things that are actually happening right now, but that are causing us to worry. So to just kind of harness that and bring it into your practice to ground. And having,
do you call that something? Go ahead.
I usually call it the sacred morning and the sacred evening practices, because I do like those words. So, but if that doesn't resonate, you know, it's just a ritual. It could be your, you know, I've heard it called miracle mornings. There's something called a miracle morning, which is nice, but then I do it in the evening too. So miracle evening.
You can just come up with your own, whatever.
Yeah, I just call it my sacred morning, sacred evening, because sacred is just, to me, that means I'm placing a really strong attention on something. You know, when it becomes sacred, it becomes meaningful. So I actually am having my attention on it.
Reverence, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really significant.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you have given us something to, you know, take home. And I want to kind of use that with my clients and myself too. You know, we kind of use different variations of it, but it's nice and concrete. So it's great.
People love concrete.
So I think we just have a few minutes left. So I want to thank you, number one. And it's so great to see you again. I love listening to you talk about this stuff. You know that I always have. Like, it's always so inspiring to sit down and talk about any of these realms: positive psychology, yoga, you know, the spirituality, just all of it, the whole gamut, the sutras. I know some of these words a lot of people may not have recognized. I kind of forgot in the promotion when I was promoting this to let people know how, you know, steeped we are, and how much you use it in your coaching, the actual yogic philosophy, like straight up yogic philosophy. And a lot of these terms come from the sutras and from Sanskrit. So that's what those are, everybody. And so I want to let you know that, I'm going to let Joy let you know about her coaching, her website, how to find her and, you know, get on her mailing list so you can continue to be inspired. I'll let you know if you don't know me. So I'm a recovery and life transition coach. So that's recovery from anything, including substance abuse. But I've defined recovery as restoring balance after having lost it. So it's whatever's knocked you off, you know, a divorce, a breakup, a job loss, a diagnosis of something. There's so many, a dramatic move, a pandemic, you know. So that's what I do. My website is nikkiaiello.com. So just like my little Instagram, nikkiaiello.com. And that's where you can find out about me. And now, Joy, I'll let you just exit with all of your information.
Oh yeah. Well, thanks, Nikki. This was so good to connect. And I think my information is, I was going to say, we should have said what the Yoga Sutra was at the beginning, I guess, right? Like what it is. But it's this ancient text that has all these great aphorisms and teachings about how to suffer less and how to take control of your mind, really, how to, you know, so it's very relevant for today's times. But my website is joystonecoaching.com. So it's very easy, joystonecoaching.com. If you go to my website, you can download my book for free. You can buy it on Amazon, but you can download a free copy, an ebook copy, just at Joystone.
I got mine today.
You did? Yay. Okay. Yeah, cool. Did you get it from my website?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, so you can get a free download. And there is with the book, you guys, and Nikki, for you too, there is a free downloadable PDF of all of the Sanskrit words in my book.
I saw that.
Yeah, with the definitions and an audio of me saying all of them. And I do want to let you know, there's not like millions of Sanskrit words in there. It's just that there's enough in there to weave in the teachings, but I put it in English, very practical, modern terms. And then when you go to my website, you can learn more about Soul School, which you'll see a tab right there for that too. Thank you.
Awesome. Joy, thank you so much. I'd love to do this again, you know, either this way and definitely just, you know, us connecting and talking more and keeping each other inspired and all of that. So, so thank you everybody who's shown up, and we will see you again soon. We'll keep you posted on if we do another one of these.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Instagram people. I'm going to end this one.
Okay. Bye.
25 seconds remaining. Not bad.
Wow, we did it.